All right, good afternoon, everyone. It is now 12:32 p.m., so we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Education, Youth, and Older Adults Committee. I am Councilman John Bullock, Chair of the committee, Councilman of the 9th District. We are pleased to be joined by the President of the City Council, Zeke Cohen, and also Councilman Zach Blanchard of the 11th District, and then also Councilman Jermaine Jones of the 12th District. Fortunate to have Julianne Jamad, who's also doing some great work as the staff to the committee. I know we have additional representatives from the City Council President's Office, some from the Mayor's Office that we anticipate as well. We do want to go ahead and get started. Oh, and also joined by Vice Chair of the committee, Councilmember Mark Parker of the 1st District. This is a very important hearing for us. We've labeled it First Steps, Strong Start, Child Care in Baltimore City. And it is no coincidence that at least on this side, these four gentlemen are all fathers, and we'll see what's going on the other side. But it's also not missed on us that it is very cold outside. We've dealt with a lot of snow. And we appreciate the folks who have made it out today, but it also says a lot about the conditions of our education in our city and thinking about the child care providers, thinking about the parents who find themselves in challenging circumstances. So again, we do thank you for being here. This is very important to me and to us because a lot of us are going through this journey, but I will say also as an educator, I know how important it is those first steps are in education, but I do want to provide a little bit of an opportunity for Council President Cohen to make some comments as we get started. So thank you for being here.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair, and really appreciate you holding this hearing, really appreciate your framing. Thank you to Dr. Carrie Wright for joining us. I'm grateful to have you in the chamber. Thank you to all of the folks who braved the snow. Look, I think today is a reminder that childcare is not a luxury, it is a necessity for many working families. Just like the chair said, most of us who are sitting up here are young-ish dads. We all have children, and we have each seen the impact that costs of childcare have on our families. I will say, for me personally, I have 2 kids. My wife and I both work in the city of Baltimore, and we do okay, but childcare consumes so much of our family's budget. I know that is the case for many of our neighbors across the city of Baltimore, and I know that for many of our neighbors, some folks can't afford childcare. So what do? You get in a situation where you are bringing your children with you to work, which we know can be really difficult on parents, or you get in a situation where your child is staying home alone, and that is unsafe and can be unhealthy. And so this really is, I think, a crisis not just for our city, but for our country. No one has figured out how to effectively leverage all the different systems and how they intersect with each other in order to have a robust childcare plan for families. I will say that this is a top priority for me as council president. I know for our chair and for our vice chair in the Education and Youth Committee, and for all of us. When I ran for office this last time, I said that we need universal pre-kindergarten in the city of Baltimore. And not just for our 4-year-olds, but for our 3-year-olds as well. We know that Baltimore is doing well when it comes to the mixed delivery, when it comes to kindergarten readiness, but we're not doing well enough. We need to make sure every single one of our babies is in school as young as possible when that critical brain and growth development is happening. We know that 0 through 5, that is where we see the most cognitive growth. And so we got to make sure that children across the city of Baltimore and the state of Maryland are able to get high quality early learning experiences, and that parents have access to childcare. Just a few stats before I wrap it up. Since the COVID-19 pandemic began, Baltimore City has experienced a decrease in availability of early care and educational capacity. The average weekly cost of care has grown by between 8 and 21%, depending on the type of care. The cost of accessing care and the cost of providing care are similarly inaccessible. The location of childcare seats and the distribution of families across our city are mismatched. And so it is my hope that through this hearing that we are able to bring all of our stakeholders together to be able to tackle what is a real challenge, not just for the city, not just for the state, but for the entire United States. And that Baltimore could be a shining example of what it looks like when we take care of our families, our parents, and our children. With that, turn it back to the chair, and grateful again for your leadership on this issue.
Thank you, Mr. President. Appreciate your very thoughtful comments and the effort not only that you and your staff has put into this hearing today. Also want to note we've been joined by Councilmember Odette Ramos of the 14th District, another parent, was also had to,
parent caucus.
had to navigate this. But let's go ahead and get started. And I'll just say, it's a pleasure as an educator to have the top educator for our state being here. When Dr. Carey Wright shows up, you know it's an important issue. And so the fact that our state superintendent sees it an important issue to be here in the midst of the cold and the snow tells you a lot. So, and I know you have a very limited schedule, so thank you first for being here. And we'll open it up and allow you to give us some thoughts and let us know where we're going.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Chair. I'm really delighted to be here. This is a very important topic for us. And I know we've got a deck that we're going to get that started. You've got it? Okay. All right, perfect. Oh, thank you. That's very helpful. I got it. I got it. Okay. There you go, Sarah. Somebody can do it. We know that the availability, accessibility, and quality of early child care and education remain top of mind for the families in Baltimore City and across Maryland. Many of you have heard concerns from constituents about the child care scholarship enrollment freeze. Next slide. Let me pause here. These are the goals of our strategic plan, and as you can see, Pillar 1 is all related to early childhood, and there is every time I speak, whether it's locally or nationally, I say there's a reason that Pillar 1 is the first pillar, because that's the foundation of everything that we do in education starts with our little ones. So this, to give you an idea, and we've aligned that to the pillars of the blueprint as well. Next slide. Inside that strategic plan, inside Pillar 1, we have pull the outcomes, if you will, that we're expecting every child to reach. We want to increase readiness on our KRA. We want to increase proficiency rates for each student subgroup, and we want to reduce the gaps that are existing between subgroups. Next slide. And that's one of your finest right there, that woman on the screen. Love her. And the other outcomes are to increase the count of 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds from Tier 1 households, which are low income, children with disabilities, homeless, or children born in homes where English is not the primary spoken language, who are enrolled in high quality, meaning EXCELS rating of 3 or more on a full day pre-K, and increase the count for 4-year-olds who are enrolled in high quality, EXCELS rating of 3 or more in a full day pre-K as well. Next slide. I want to be clear that we at the Maryland State Department of Education share these concerns and are working every day to keep the Maryland momentum moving forward and increase school readiness and access to high quality early learning for our littlest learners. Maryland Momentum is MSDE's strategic plan developed in alignment with the blueprint for Maryland's future. We are using data to drive our efforts to ensure that every child in Baltimore and every child in Maryland has access to a high quality early childhood program, and using that data to hold us as an agency and our programs accountable to increasing access to high quality early learning. We also know that access to early learning opportunities is a critical need in Baltimore and statewide, and the Child Care Scholarship Program is one of MSDE's signature investments in driving access to quality care. The pause in the Child Care Scholarship Awards that began last May was driven by real constraints in the state budget, not a lack of need. Demand for child care assistance continues to outpace available funding. Over the past several years, the cost of living has risen for families and the cost of operating child care programs has increased. Scholarship demand has also grown dramatically. Enrollment in the Child Care Scholarship Program more than doubled in 3 years, from serving 19,000 children in July of 22 to over 47,000 children at the peak in June of 25. Provider participation has grown from 2,500 providers in July of 22 to more than 3,500 providers statewide today. That is over a 50% increase of all licensed providers. Next slide. In November 2025, there were almost 6,500 children in Baltimore City receiving scholarships. That is the top 5% of the 5% of those children who receive scholarships are being served in the city. In November of 2025, there were almost 500 Baltimore City providers active in the program. Next slide. This growth is a testament to the program's value and the investments made by our governor and the members of the General Assembly. Maryland has increased its investment in Child Care Scholarship Program by 600% since Governor Moore took office, from $59 million in FY23 to a record $414 million annually for fiscal 26. Governor Moore is continuing his commitment to early childhood by sustaining his record investments in Child Care Scholarship for FY27. Including the federal child care and development funds, Maryland has almost $600 million supporting low-income families to access quality early childhood education so that they can work or attend school knowing that their children are safe and while engaged in responsive learning environments. Alongside these investments, MSDE has focused on making the program more accessible for families and more sustainable for providers, while always ensuring we keep the children at the heart of early childhood investments. Income eligibility has increased from 50% of the state median income in 2016 to 75% in 2025. That means approximately $102,332 for a family of four. Provider payments have increased from the 9th percentile of the market rate in 2016 to the near 75th percentile in 2022 today. And in the months moving forward, we will be moving it to the 60th percentile of the 2024 market rate. These policy changes were essential to addressing affordability for families and supporting providers who are also facing rising costs while running small businesses. But this unprecedented growth has also led the program to reach its maximum authorized budget funding. With the state currently facing broader fiscal challenges, no additional funds are available at this time to expand the program further. The decision to pause new enrollments last May was difficult, but necessary to remain with the authorized budget and maintain support for the families already enrolled. Even with this enrollment freeze, the program continues to serve tens of thousands of families, and since May, more than 2,000 new scholarships have been issued to families exempt from the wait list, including temporary cash assistance recipients, families receiving SSI, and siblings of children already enrolled. And 20% of these new scholarships have been for children and families living here in Baltimore City. Next slide. We acknowledge this freeze has lasted longer than any of us have anticipated. As Maryland navigates a tightening fiscal environment, we know that many families who need scholarships are still waiting. MSDE continues to work with the governor, the General Assembly, and our partners throughout the state, some of who are with us today, like our child care resource centers and the Maryland Family Network, as we consider the difficult choices ahead and explore options to address this funding gap and support working families here in Baltimore and across Maryland. Many are asking when the freeze will end. At this time, there is no set end date. Lifting the freeze will depend on whether additional funding becomes available when Maryland is in a stronger financial state or whether enrollment levels naturally decline to a sustainable level. We are hopeful that we'll be able to begin offering scholarships to families on the wait list soon. But without significant new funding, we expect the wait list will remain in place for the foreseeable future. We also recognize that families and providers across the state are anxious as we await clarity on any future changes to the federal child care funding. As always, MSDE is committed to transparency, timely communication, and partnerships as we navigate these challenges. Families are counting on this support. We do not take this responsibility lightly. We are working every day with our partners in the governor's office and the Maryland General Assembly, and with all of you actually, to ensure that the Child Care Scholarship Program continues to serve as many families as possible now and in the future. As we talk about access and affordability, we must also talk about quality and the experiences that children are having in these programs. During early childhood, more than 1 million new neural connections form every single second. Think about that. 1 million new neural connections every single second. Responsive interactions between children and caregivers, like those found in high-quality programs, are foundational to healthy brain development. Maryland Excels, our state's quality rating and improvement system, helps differentiate quality, supports continuous quality improvement in early childhood programs, and helps families select high-quality early childhood programs that best meet their family's needs. Today, Maryland Excels participation continues to grow, and more programs are reaching higher quality ratings. Providers can earn progressively higher ratings 1 through 5 through Excels for meeting certain benchmarks. Programs with a quality rating of 5 meet the highest standards in Maryland Excels and are state and nationally accredited. Statewide, 41% of all published programs have earned a rating of 3, 4, or 5. That is an 8% increase over this past year. Providers who participate in Maryland Excels are eligible for bonuses based on their rating. In FY25, programs received more than $6.6 million in bonuses, reinforcing the state's commitment to quality. Here in Baltimore City, as of December 25, 636 programs participate in Maryland's Excels, including 600 licensed providers and 36 public pre-K programs. This represents a 91% participation rate amongst licensed providers, well above the state average of 72 and one of the highest rates in Maryland. Baltimore City has the fourth highest number of high-quality rated providers statewide, with 36% rated at 3, 4, or 5. Looking ahead, MSDE is preparing to modernize the Maryland Excels system into what we are calling Excels Plus, shifting the focus from compliance to continuous quality improvement. This shift will emphasize the class tool and responsive teacher-child interactions that drive meaningful learning. We are thrilled to announce that Maryland was recently awarded a new preschool development grant for nearly $15 million, which will support our work to begin building the infrastructure for Excels Plus in 2026, and will expand our partnerships with Teachstone and Lena Grow to support high-quality teacher-child interactions and language development. We're going to be using data-informed professional development and coaching also to improve our outcomes for children. We are grateful for the invitation to speak today, and we welcome the opportunity to answer your questions and look forward to continuing to partner in the year ahead to ensure that Baltimore City's youngest learners have the strongest start possible in life. Thank you.
So thank you very much for your detailed, very thorough, sobering report. It's helpful to get an idea about where the state is and where we're going, where some of the gaps are. Also want to note that we're joined also by Dr. DeRosa, Deputy Mayor, who's also another working parent as well, who's gone down this journey. But also, I know that part of her title is also around equity, right? And I think about some of the things that you mentioned in your presentation, and maybe you can address some of these, but I know some of our other panelists may be able to address some of this. But when you start talking about addressing those disparities, how we get there, I think this would be very critical. Those scholarship dollars, I know those are limited, but as you talk about children from low-income families, which we know we have a lot of, but also those with disabilities, particularly the homeless children. I think that's another piece that you raised, I think is very, very interesting. So, and then also talk about high quality. But if you could talk about some of the disparities, about how we sort of close that gap, and I know some of the other panelists will address this, but any thoughts you have on it, would love to hear it, and I'll pass it on to Council President.
So can I pass this off to my assistant superintendent?
Sure.
Because I'm doing Annapolis, as you
I know you are.
I apologize. But Sarah Neville Morgan is here. She is one of the newest hires. She's an assistant superintendent for everything related to early childhood.
Perfect.
She comes with a national reputation. She is, she knows everything there is to know about early childhood and then some, and she is leading this department admirably. So I trust her like no other, and she can give you all the details that I probably would have to turn to her anyway and ask for.
Awesome. Well, look, thank you for your time. Be safe on the roads for you and for everyone else. But again, thank you so
sir.
much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Sarah. Did you want to come again?
I think I'm good.
Okay.
Thanks, Carrie. So that was a very nice accolades. There obviously are so many other really important critical people, and including having Dr. Carrie Wright leading this, all this work. So I think there's a lot as we look at opportunities and ensuring our children across Maryland have equitable access to those opportunities. And then as we dive into Baltimore City, one of the pieces that really has gone forth is what you mentioned earlier around pre-K and pre-K expansion, and how Baltimore City specifically has addressed really supporting a mixed delivery in that access for our children across Baltimore City. We do know as we continue to look at both the freeze and a wait list and how we bring children off a wait list and where we continue to prioritize, that as you said, children experiencing homelessness are one of those priority factors that we would be considering within the big children who are the lowest income first and then bringing up. The other part I think you said was children with disabilities. Did you bring that one up too? So that is also, right now they are, if the family is receiving SSI, then the child is not subject to the wait list. And so they have been continuing to receive scholarships.
No, that's very helpful. Council President.
Thank you, Deputy Superintendent. My question is, what is the MSDE doing to advocate to the General Assembly to lift the freeze? And the second part of that question is, how can the Baltimore City Council help?
So I heard some people, my name is Sarah Neville Morgan, so there you have it for the testimony, yeah. Assistant State Superintendent. So we don't advocate, we educate, just the clarity there in my role, but uplifting always the child at the heart and center of all of the investments. And you actually mentioned earlier the return on the investment that we get when we are ensuring that our children and families have what they need, what that means for Maryland's economy. So we do have a child care scholarship briefing coming up on February 4th, where we'll be sharing more slides and more data, as well as continuing to while we don't put the pressure on the dollars, knowing that Maryland's economy right now has a lot of stretch and demands on it, we do continue to say how this can actually help expand the economy and show how many more families are eligible and really want it. The other part I want to uplift is what providers have shared. So while these funds are for children and families, we also know the impact on the provider community across Maryland has been huge, with more and more providers participating, but really using those dollars to help stabilize their budgets as well.
Appreciate that, and I apologize for butchering your title slightly. I appreciate the framing around educating as opposed to advocating. Where I will push, though, is I think this is critically important. The General Assembly, the governor, many folks on this city council all went up and pushed for the blueprint for significant investments in early childhood education, in preschool expansion, in childcare, because we know, like you said, like Dr. Wright said, that kids' brains do the most growth early on. And there is incredible ROI in this investment. And so what I would just ask of you and the entire MSDE team is to really push and put some pressure on, because we cannot walk back any of our commitments to our kids, to our families, but particularly when it comes to early childhood education, where we know we get arguably the most bang for our buck. This is not just about the state having a very challenging fiscal climate. This is about investment in the future of our city, our state, our workforce. And so please continue to educate, but also I think that advocacy is critically important. And I know that you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of us and all of our colleagues, as well as Mayor Scott, up there with you, reminding our dear friends who have been incredible on this issue that we have an obligation to our kids and that we should lift this freeze. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. President, for also connecting the dots with the blueprint. It's something that we've been talking about for a number of years, and understanding, yes, it's a tight fiscal environment, but at the same time, we want to make sure we're making that investment. So I'm glad that you utilized that term. I know Councilmember Jones has a question, and then we'll come to the other side.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is in regards to like the freeze and the hold. Is there a timeline or that you all project, or is there is it just sheerly financial, and when there's the funds there, and if so, how much funds is it going to be? Just kind of getting an idea of the length, because as we build a waiting list, sometimes it creates expectation that eventually, it'll get released. And, something like childcare is, 5 years, 2 years is a long time. The kid who may need childcare no longer may need it after 3 years. So time is kind of the essence when it comes to these type of things. So it's good to have an idea or projection on how long this may be or what the benchmarks look like so we can move towards that, because every day is important to a lot of these families, and that way they can kind of plan appropriately.
Agree with you completely. I feel like you're in the room with my team as we continue to go through the data and ask for it all the time. We met on it again this morning to look through it. We also have a provider reimbursement rate increase that's happening. And so what we're doing now is taking the data of children and the providers and determining from that how much we have. So we know we have enough to start bringing them off the wait list before the new fiscal year starts. It's just how many and when. The fact that we had such a surge in applications before we closed it, so we closed May 1st, but we had that surge of applications really pushed all of the timeline outside what we had for our original estimates. And so now it's balancing that longer. Because we went up to almost 48,000 children and now we're decreasing, it's taking longer, but you can imagine that also meant we drew down on more funds than we had anticipated as we go through it. I will flag, because we deeply care about this, I think my whole team worked in the field, either we're childcare providers or early educators, that this is heart and soul for us. So one of the things that we continue to do is how can we support it in a variety of ways, beyond just the uplift that we do and the sort of supports through our talking points and that kind of thing, and our regular messaging. So we're with you, I promise. We will continue to push for it and see when we can open. And unless we get significant more revenue, it will just be a removal from wait list, but we will still be managing a wait list. As we look at the children who've been able to access that scholarships, as Dr. Wright said, it's been over 2,000, the majority of whom have been babies. So we know when we get our infants and toddlers access to scholarships, that really can support a family to get back to work, to get to school, to get their necessary credentials or certificates. So as you look at the economy, we feel like that piece of how we've been able to really support more babies the last couple of months has been really important.
Thank you for the question and the answer that both highlight the urgency of the issue, so much appreciated. Do want to go to Councilmember Blanchard, then Councilmember Parker, and also want to get our other panelists to present as well. So please, Councilman Blanchard.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. So I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, so I'm the young father. These are the young-ish fathers. Each of my 2 kids, the cost of childcare is right about what the mortgage is for our house. And we put a lot of effort into finding, we did not choose the most expensive place. I just looked up on the Excels ranking. It is actually a 1-star institution. I know that doesn't rank everything, but there's certainly challenges with the place that we use. Obviously, we love the teachers, but there's challenges. The conversation around Excels and unfreezing this and everything is incredibly important. I want to make sure we kind of get the opportunity to talk about sort of broader for middle income families, folks falling outside of the realm of the child care scholarships and everything. I like saying that the cost of childcare is gaslighting me into thinking I'm financially irresponsible. No, seriously, because I'm like, what am I doing in my life that's where's all this money going? Are we spending too much on food? No. Are we doing this? No. We're doing that? No, it's just childcare, right? And so what can be done to help make the pain stop outside of government subsidy, which is an incredibly important part of the equation?
Great question. And as you look across, I think, sort of the world, it tends to be that there are public dollars invested to help address the cost. And we actually know that what we pay in our reimbursement rate doesn't address the cost of care fully, and that providers continue to have to subsidize with their own lifestyle choices and are sort of kept back from some economic pieces. We do have, as I said, like our prioritization of this, we have a few university graduate students from University of Maryland as their capstone project, looking at things like what other revenue sources are there that other states are using. A lot of us look to states who have land grants where there is a dedicated then funding stream to early childhood through that, because we know it's not just the lowest of the low-income families. It's actually most of Maryland families who are stretched by the costs of early care and education, while we also know the providers and the early educators are also stretched and confounded by it. So we've seen some states go to models where they actually have businesses and public dollars, so they create sliding fee scales, and the businesses and corporations help, as well as public subsidy, as well as families. So trying to put together sort of 3 funding pots. In some places, cities, localities, and counties have done more. But as soon as we get our capstone projects back, we would be happy to share whatever comes out of those.
Yeah, I do think that it's incredibly important, and I think you answered the question better than I asked it, right? Because there's maybe other ways to fund these things beyond just on the lower portion of the income scale. But I will also say that, I'll just end by saying that I do think it's also important if there are things that are driving up cost, or making it harder to open childcare facilities or whatever, right, that shouldn't be there, it would be really helpful if those could be identified as well, like all of the above solutions.
So I think there you're addressing regulations and other qualification components that we also hold. So there have been certain new laws. A couple years ago, there was a law that was passed, so the age of a provider or a staff working in a program went from 19 to 18 to be able to increase workforce access. And then we just had one where we looked at staff and their initial eligibility for working with 3s and 4-year-olds and being able to do more there. And this year we have a bill that's requesting to move that for 2-year-olds as well. We'll always hold, though, that we have to put the children first in all of this. Because if we start funding care that is not safe, is not healthy, and does not support their development, we've actually lost out on that return on investment and ensuring their brains, heart, souls are all grown in a really strong way.
Thank you, Councilman, for lifting up the issue of the pain that folks in the middle feel. You're giving me a little PTSD just thinking about what that felt like. But also, it's also good as an educator, college educator. I'm also glad to see our young people being engaged in productive scholarship that can help us as elected. So it's much appreciated. I also want to note that we've been joined by Council Vice President Sharon Green Middleton of the 6th District. Just glad to have you here. We know of your advocacy in education as well. So, and another parent who's also going through this process as well. Councilmember Parker, do you have a question?
Yes.
Yes, please, go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here with us today. I think some of my questions I'll obviously save for the broader conversation. Also, we have a few more presentations, but in particular relative to this piece. And just for the record, helped found an early child care center in 2018 and helped operate it for a long time. Today was the first day back after a snowy week, so it was good to get our staff and our students back in the building. Currently excels level 3, and looking to continue to grow in that. The expansion of income eligibility for the Child Care Scholarship Program happened by law or by policy decision within MSDE. I simply can't remember.
I think I might have to look that up for you because I've only been here a couple months. I think it was law.
Quite all right. Just, I asked simply because trying to figure out how much flexibility we have. So, I mean, I guess part of the question, anytime you're facing what we've done is we've expanded reimbursement rates, which is critically important. And I really appreciate it as somebody who's been operating a preschool and making sure that our staff are paid at an appropriate level. The reimbursement rates prior to this, prior to Kerwin, were not in any way sustainable. And so really appreciate that commitment. And so don't want to back away from that at all. Love the income expansion. We saw a huge uptick in the number of families in our community who could take advantage of Child Care Scholarship, and we're able to enroll them. That was a great thing for everyone involved. And also looking at a budget situation, obviously we want more resources, but also, another option, right, at least in the short term, depending on where that flexibility comes from in terms of income eligibility, would be to say, hey, at least for the time being, we're dropping it to this level as opposed to the level that we're currently at. So just asking that question, where that's set determines how flexibly we can make that adjustment, but I'm sure you all have thought about it. The other question around money spent, we haven't talked too much about pre-K expansion grants yet and seats. I know we'll get into it with other reports. But what's the cost to the state right now for a CC, like let's say a 4-year-old in general, like an average 4-year-old CCS scholarship student or scholarship recipient in a private provider versus the cost to the state right now for a pre-K expansion seat, which are also serving 4-year-olds. Just want to get a sense of that. I know they're different programs trying to do different things, but.
Let me see if they can get that to me really quickly. I know that our pre-K expansion right now is 14,000 something, and it is slated to go up to just under 20,000 moving forward. And I thought, this is why I want them to data check me, that it was between 12 and 14 for a child care scholarship. There's a lot that goes into that though. It's the full-time, where you are, all of those pieces.
And Child Care Scholarship provides support on a year-round basis and full-day basis, whereas pre-K expansion is school year basis, X number of weeks per year, but not full year, and also not 8 hours a day. I think 6 hours a day. So there's all kinds of variables, as you point out. Just to say, I think both are really critically important. I don't want anybody walking away saying that I said one wasn't important or the other. But again, at a time of limited resources, right? At least in the short term, the question is one of them a more efficient or effective way of deploying those resources than another for the return on investment? Recognizing that Child Care Shop's been around for a long time and we really want to get pre-K expansion off the ground, but just raising that up. Thank you.
Thank you. And then one more question from Councilmember Ramos before we get to the panel presentations.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Glad that our dads are here and been involved in this. As the mom, normally this all falls on the mom. So I understand what a lot of our moms, because I went through it also. My daughter's now 13, so that's a whole different thing. My question is about, you had mentioned, first of all, thanks for having this hearing, Mr. Chair, and thanks for you all braving the elements. My question is about when we talked about the wait list, and I guess you had also said that most of the applications recently have been for infants. And I think this follows up with Councilman Parker's question about, assuming that somebody has one child, they may be getting the scholarship for 4 years, correct? If they're going into, depending on if they put their kid in pre-K, depending on, and also I guess depends on the program, right? So if we sort of look at what is exactly the number of years that somebody's actually in the program, I'm just kind of curious as to, how long we're staying with these families, because I think that's actually pretty valuable to stay with the families for a while, because there may be other resources that are also needed that hopefully our families are also getting. So it's not like a one-time thing.
Yeah, what Maryland has is 24-month eligibility. So once a family receives the scholarship, they then keep that scholarship for 24 months. Per federal law, it had to move to 12-month eligibility. And Maryland decided to do the 24 because of exactly what you said, that stability for the family as they work towards more self-sufficiency, addressing costs, and for the providers and the children. We know that relationships matter in early childhood as part of that brain development. So really trying to create stability around the care settings through the 24 months. I don't have an average time that families remain in it, but that is something that we can dive into to see once they start accessing our scholarships. As you said, the majority of those who've not been subject to our wait list is because they have a sibling who already is receiving one. And so they modified their family, which is why so many babies have been brought on. So those families are already in the scholarship program.
Got it. So if you're already in, and so your other kid isn't on the wait list, they actually are able to be included, especially if they're in with the same provider. But not every provider does infants.
Right, so the provider actually doesn't dictate the family getting the scholarship. The family gets to choose providers. I think a lot of families, when they're able, will choose the same provider because it's so much easier, as we know, to
Sure,
drop
and they've
off.
already built that relationship, yeah. Yeah, and so the 24-month, that means that they have to basically reapply to put in all their information on income eligibility, et cetera. That's what we're
Yes.
saying with the 24 months. And so the sort of attrition, if you will, would be not just if they age out, but also if they're income ineligible.
That's correct. So they age out at 13 from this per federal law, and then the income goes after 85% of state median income. So we can bring them in up to 75%, but once they hit the 85%, they do need to move off.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you.
for the question. And thank you for the clarity that was provided. We have some great panelists. So let's jump into Early Childhood Advisory Council. So again, I know we have some folks who have some deep knowledge that will be very helpful for us as a council. So again, just appreciate you guys being here and able to present, and we'll go down the list. So, and as you begin, please introduce yourself and the organization.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, City Council President and Council Chair, for having this hearing today. I'm Imani Angela Rose, and I'm here on behalf of the Baltimore City Early Childhood Advisory Council, also known as ECAC. I have the clicker. Oh, do I have the right clicker? There we go. All right, take that clicker back. All right. We are a cross-sector coalition and have been working together since 2019 to strengthen early care and education systems in Baltimore City. What guides our work is an understanding that early care and education supports children from prenatal to 5 across all abilities and backgrounds. And that's a big thing for us in the ECAC. We really want to focus from prenatal to birth, not just pre-K. That is a part of where we are. And as we move on, in June of 2025, the ECAC published its second early care and education landscape analysis to better understand how well our systems are meeting the needs of young children and families in Baltimore City. Baltimore is home of 37,232 children under the age of 5. Our early care and education capacity is 50% when we include pre-K. However, it drops down to 36% without pre-K, and right now we only have 20% availability for infants and toddlers 0 to 2. This matters, and it's been said earlier today, because 90% of a child's critical brain development happens in the first 5 years. We see the impact of school readiness. 43% of children who attend a formal early education program demonstrate readiness, while only 17% demonstrate it without being in a program. Between November 2019 and May 2024, the city lost 111 family-based childcare programs, resulting in a 21% decline in capacity. During that same period, center-based care also declined, and we lost 1,664 seats. Combined, this data shows that our child care system is actually shrinking and becoming smaller. Maryland Excels is an optional quality care rating program. It has 5 levels, and participation, if you want to receive child care scholarships, providers must opt in to Maryland Excels and be at least a level 1. The slide shows that the distribution of child care programs by Excel's quality rating as of May 2024. Most programs are clustered at levels 1 through 3, with relatively few reaching levels 4 and 5. There are two things that we really want to note. First, moving up from one level to another in Maryland Excels requires significant time, capacity, and support, resources that most providers don't have. Second, while Excels is Maryland's quality rating measure, there is currently no data that directly links your Excels rating to kindergarten readiness outcomes. Between 2020 and 2023, the cost of childcare for families in Baltimore City increased significantly across all types of care. For family childcare, weekly costs rose about 12% for infants and toddlers and 15% for children ages 2 to 4. For center-based care, costs increased by 8% for infants and toddlers and 20% for ages 2 to 4. We do not know the true cost for provided care for a young child, but we do know that in Maryland, child care tuition and scholarship reimbursements are based on what the market rate is, which definitely does not reflect the true cost of care. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services defines affordability as 7% of household income. A family at Baltimore's median income is spending 31% of their household income on child care for 2 children. In Baltimore, like many cities, child care costs more than housing. I think somebody said that up there earlier. And importantly, 60,000 families in the city earn less than the median income. As referenced in the landscape analysis, over half of participants in Baltimore City's Young Family Success Program say affordability is their biggest barrier to accessing early care and education. This is not just an expense, it's a barrier to economic mobility for families and the entire community. Using the city's overall median income hides important differences by race and ethnicity. Here, the landscape analysis shows the median income based on race. We can see that Black households have roughly half the median annual income of white families. As a result, the financial strain of child care falls unevenly, with families of color facing greater barriers to access. While the ECAC's landscape analysis does not include workforce data, a December 2024 report from Maryland Comptroller Brooke Learman provides important context. Women with children 5 and under participate in the labor force at 80.8%, nearly 6 points lower than women without children. At that same time, Maryland's early care and education workforce faces low wages and limited benefits, which contributes to workforce instability and impacts families' access to care. Very well compensated early educators make it possible for parents to work and for the local economies to grow. As one parent said, "It's a lot when you have children. I lost 2 jobs due to not having consistent daycare. I called around for my infant care, but there was none available." Child care enables parents to enter, remain, and advance in the workforce. When care is unavailable or unaffordable, families experience lost wages, employers face higher turnover, and communities see reduced economic output. Early childhood educators are the workforce behind the workforce. Strengthening the child care system is not only a family support strategy, it is a critical economic development strategy. Walt Disney reminds us that the path forward requires action. Today's data highlight the challenges facing families, children, and early care workforce in Baltimore City. But the work is already happening. The city has talented providers and organizations dedicated to improving care and education. By supporting and building on the capacity of those who are already doing this work, we can ensure that every child has the opportunity for a strong start. And I do believe you all have a copy of the landscape analysis, and in the back of it, there is a list of government, state and local government recommendations that was put into that project.
So thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the resources. But then also want to note the workforce behind the workforce. I think that's an important thing for us to always keep in mind. Just for everybody on the council to know, one of the things we want to do is go through the presentations and then open up to questions afterward. So with that being said, I want to move on to the Baltimore City Child Care Resource Center.
So good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tracy Harris, and I'm here on behalf of the Baltimore City Child Care Resource Center at the Family Tree. I'm also joined by our Executive Director, Stacy Brown. Today, I will speak briefly about how we provide accessibility, capacity, quality, and equity. So now let's look at accessibility and how parents access childcare. They do this through Locate Childcare. Locate Childcare is a free referral service that helps families find childcare. Finding a safe place to put your child is one of a parent's biggest decisions. Now, when parents think about where they want their child to go to college and how important that is, now think about that in reverse and start at the beginning and have that same context for selecting the right child care and the investment that makes for a child's education journey. As you will see on the graphs above, it represents the number of child care programs and capacities. So looking at the graph to the left, the number of child care programs in Baltimore City, this data was pulled directly from Locate Childcare. So currently there are 387 family and large family child care programs, 270 child care centers. Now let's look at the graph to the right and look at capacity in child care slots in Baltimore City. For family and large family, there are 3,021 child care slots. For child care centers, there are 14,298 slots. As you heard from Imani from the early childhood landscape analysis, there is an estimated 37,232 children under the age of 5 in Baltimore City. There are only enough slots to cover half of that number, further cementing the importance of early childhood education. Now we're going to move on to capacity. The Baltimore City Child Care Resource Center builds capacity through our Growing Opportunities for Family Child Care program, also known as GoFCC. This program helps individuals who are interested in becoming a licensed family child care program. We do this work by providing coaching, training, and technical assistance through the licensure process. Not only does program contributes directly to the capacity of childcare slots in Baltimore City, but it also increases the number of business owners. As you heard earlier, well-compensated early educators make it possible for parents to work and local economies to grow. Truly, the workforce behind the workforce. This program, since the inception in 2022 of September, have assisted 61 individuals in Baltimore City in becoming a licensed family child care program, resulting in 416 child care slots. There is a direct marriage between workforce and child care. Now we're going to go on to talk about how we provide quality technical assistance and coaching. So one may wonder what coaching does. It's simple. Our coaches provide individualized, on-site support to family child care and center-based programs. It guides these programs through Maryland State Department of Education quality initiatives such as accreditation, Maryland Excels, and the Child Development Associate, also known as the CDA, a nationally recognized early childhood credential. It translates standards into practical, day-to-day improvements. And why coaching works? Well, it's all about the relationships. It builds trusting, long-lasting relationships with childcare professionals. It creates a safe space to ask questions, problem solve, and reflect. It supports goal setting and hands-on practice of new skills and not just training. So let's look at some of the impact in Baltimore City. We have intricately increased the number of programs pursuing and achieving accreditation and higher Maryland Excels ratings. Accreditation for family child care programs have increased by 183% over the last 3 years, with us contributing to 150% of that growth. Our coaches support programs serving infants, toddlers, and preschools, strengthening quality where it truly matters the most. Looking at quality continue for our professional development. Over the prior 3 fiscal years, the Baltimore City Child Care Resource Center has consistently provided 15 to 16% of the total number of training workshops provided statewide, averaging 200 workshops per year. All of our trainings are Maryland State Department of Education, MSDE approved, and provides core knowledge to child care professionals. All child care professionals are required to complete an assessment and evaluation. Now let's look at some of that data. Last fiscal year, we provided training to over 1,800 child care professionals, with 98% of those child care professionals reported being satisfied with our trainings, and 97.8% of those child care professionals reported that they're definitely likely to implement strategies from a training. This data demonstrates how we strengthen the early childhood workforce through high-quality professional development. Last but not certainly least, I'm going to talk about equity. We house 2 programs who excel in providing equitable support, referrals, and guidance to ensure that families are able to successfully navigate complex systems and access resources to reduce gaps in care, education, and healthy development to those most at risk: children of color, children with disabilities, and those from lower income families. Early care and education supports children prenatal to 5 across all abilities and backgrounds. For our infant and early childhood mental health consultation program, all Baltimore City children in child care settings with behavioral health challenges have access to intensive, free of charge behavioral health consultation services for themselves, their families, and child care providers. We truly strengthen and stabilize an underpaid and highly stressed child care workforce by offering targeted support within their daily work environments. This program truly demonstrates strong outcomes. Over the past 3 years, at least 90% of children receiving services have successfully maintained their placement in the child care setting chosen by their parents. For our parent leadership program, this program builds advocacy and leadership capacity among parents of children from birth to age 3, ensuring that parent voices are meaningfully represented in decisions that shape early childhood programs, policies, and services. On behalf of the Baltimore City Child Care Resource Center at the Family Tree, we would like to thank you for this opportunity to testify and urge you to invest in organizations doing the work to support early care and education. Today, you only heard a snapshot of the work we can do, and we can do so much more with your investment. As I end this presentation, I want to remind you of what you heard from others, and particularly why early care and education is important, because 90% of a child's critical brain development happens in the first 5 years. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the presentation. There's a lot there that we can unpack, but a couple things that you mentioned that I think are very key. One, that these child care providers are professionals, right? And that,
Yes.
that professional development that you're participating in is very key. From technical assistance, licensure, accreditation, all of that is important as we talk about, and others have talked about today, which is really around quality. So again, we know that folks are part of this workforce, behind the workforce, they're employing people, they're starting businesses. This is very important for our economics in our city. So
Yes.
again, just want to lift that up. Do want to now move on to the Maryland Family Network, please.
Thank you so much. What a great day today. I want to say thank you to Chair Bullock, members of the Education, Youth, and Older Adults Committee, Council President Cohen, and all of our partners and colleagues here in the chamber today. I'm Mike Hirschenfeld, Chief Impact Officer, and I'm here with Laura Wheeldryer, Executive Director at Maryland Family Network. Thank you for the opportunity to share a quick snapshot of MFN's work in Baltimore City. We'll look at what we're doing on the ground, where we're operating, and how our tools can support data-driven policy and investment decisions. In the next few minutes, I'll walk through our core Baltimore City programs and how they connect to supply, access, and family stability. At a high level, Maryland Family Network operates multiple efforts in Baltimore City and across the state, each designed to strengthen early childhood outcomes and family stability. This section is about what we operate and where, because geography matters. Families experience the child care system neighborhood by neighborhood and council district by council district. In Baltimore City, our work is organized across 3 core service lines. First, Early Head Start Centers, a federally funded and state-supported community-based early childhood program serving children 6 weeks to age 3 and their families with an income eligibility requirement. These sites provide licensed full-day childcare with integrated health, early learning, and family supports. Second are PADI centers, also known as family support centers. These are community-based and 2-generation, but designed as a family support program for expectant families and those with children under 5, with no income requirement. The focus is on on-site family support that advances education, economic mobility, and strong caregiving. Third is the Child Care Resource Center, which you heard from Tracy a few minutes ago. This is a statewide network, and there is one here in Baltimore City, and there's, I believe, 6 more across the state as a regional approach. These are a centralized hub for home and center-based childcare professionals. We provide training, coaching, and technical assistance to strengthen quality and sustainability for licensed programs and early childhood professionals. The map that's on your screen shows MFN sites by Baltimore City Council District, which is helpful for seeing how our footprint aligns with communities across the city. The key point is that our work is distributed across multiple districts. So when we talk about childcare access, family supports, and provider capacity, we're talking about a citywide system, but with very local realities. I know there's a lot of text on this slide. This is more for you to look at after. I'd like to go a bit more in depth on a few of our programs and initiatives. Baltimore City's PADI Center family support programs, of which there are 3, are a program of the landmark Blueprint for Maryland's Future legislation. And while the 18 statewide centers are built on a shared foundation, they are intentionally designed to look different from one another. Every PADI Center provides 4 core services: case management, early childhood education, mental health supports, and parents and children together, or PACT programming. These 4 services are consistent across all sites and ensure families receive comprehensive 2-generation support. Beyond that common core, each center is designed to meet the specific needs of the community it serves. Some are embedded in schools or workforce settings, others operate as neighborhood-based hubs, and each reflects local priorities, partnerships, and family needs. That balance of consistency and flexibility is what allows PADI centers to work across very different contexts while delivering reliable, high-impact support citywide. Additionally, it is important to note that this program is statutorily required to expand, and we should expect that some of that expansion will take place here in Baltimore City. One of the biggest challenges with expansion is finding partners who are able to come to the table with a space that is no or low rent. We would be very interested in continuing to work with the city and partnering to find solutions to that challenge. You heard briefly earlier about Locate Childcare. This is another program and initiative of Maryland Family Network. Locate Childcare is Maryland's only formal statewide childcare resource and referral system built on up-to-date licensure data shared directly from the State Department of Education. It's a free service that helps families connect to trusted, regulated childcare while also giving providers free marketing to help fill available openings. On this slide, I intentionally included a screenshot of the full search interface to highlight how powerful this tool really is. Families can filter by location, child age, program setting, costs, hours of operation, languages spoken at the site, financial assistance available, special needs, and other quality indicators, which allow them to drill down to the best possible fit for their specific needs, not just whatever care happens to be closest or available. Those same filters are just as important on the data side. They allow the rest of us to understand both supply and demand with much greater precision. We can now look at supply and demand by age, schedule, affordability. We can see what parents are looking for, where and when. That level of detail is what makes Locate a valuable policy and learning tool, not just a family-facing search engine. This slide highlights childcare providers and childcare deserts. We were able to, with the help of council staff over the past couple of weeks, have this map broken down by council district. When we looked at just Baltimore City as a whole, it's all green. And so when we break it down by council district and when we look at other smaller geographies, you can see how the nuance really shines. This slide highlights childcare providers and childcare deserts, showing how access varies across the city. The takeaway is simple. Need is not evenly distributed, and neither is supply. We also provide an interactive childcare map. The link is on this slide and the QR code is there for quick access. You can see I clicked on City Council District 1 and it pops up with a breakdown of all of the stats and data that exist in that specific council district. I chose that district because it happens to be where I live. I'm going to glance over this slide because you already heard from Tracy a little bit earlier as well about growing opportunities for family childcare. This is another program that Maryland Family Network gets to support statewide. And so we do have sites across other regions in the state that do this program. And the only thing I will note on here is that you can see the impact on the side over there. And that indicates that since fiscal year 2022, the state has had 261 new licensed providers created as a result, and Tracy let us know that 61 of those 261 are right here in Baltimore City. And one of our newest program implementations that has been happening over the past couple of months is a shared services alliance. And we've talked a lot today about costs and affordability on both the family side and the provider side, and this program is really intended to tackle some of that. The Shared Service Alliance helps childcare programs and providers save money, save time, strengthen quality by sharing resources and operational supports, and this is all in the effort so that providers can invest more in the people who care for our children. There are three clear ways that partners can support this work. Invest, so providers in high-need communities can join and benefit. Offer vendor discounts on critical goods and services while also being directly marketed to 7,000 licensed providers across the state. And contribute tools and templates to the resource library while promoting the new statewide Early Childhood Career Hub. And so I'm just leaving you all with some extra slides that I won't go through. It has more information on data and outcomes. You can drill a little bit deeper if you'd like. And finally, thank you for your time. Laura and I welcome any questions and any direction you all would have on additional data that might be helpful as you all work through your policy priorities.
Well, first, I'll say thank you again for a presentation. I will say your work in terms of family stability and support is really key. I grew up in one of those families that utilized that family support, and so Early Head Start was my first entree into this field, and so I got hooked on education. So again, I think about what it does, but also on that slide that you didn't go into, but I did notice in terms of the Patty Centers. I'm glad that you lift up the work being done at Excel Academy in West Baltimore, because that's in our district, and we deal with a lot of challenges, but also it's something that has been a blessing to many of the families and the young people who are in our community. So again, just wanted to lift that work up. Do want to shift now to the Fund for Educational Excellence.
Thanks so much. All right. Good afternoon. Thanks so much for having this hearing and for having us talk about this really important issue. My name is Roger Schulman. I'm the president of the Fund for Educational Excellence. I'm very sorry that my colleague, Rudy Zellman, who leads this work at the fund, is not able to be here today. So you are very much getting the B team. So be patient. Like I can't even work the clicker. Okay, there we go. So the Fund for Educational Excellence serves in three important capacities in the early childhood education landscape. First, we serve as a central intermediary in this world. We work with across partners that include childcare providers, Baltimore City Public Schools, the philanthropic community, and community organizations to help strengthen the overall ecosystem. For us, one very important part of this work has been the pre-K expansion through a mixed delivery model that can help families access free and high-quality pre-K in multiple settings that include Baltimore City Public Schools, Head Start, child care centers, and family child care centers. And we are really excited to be working with the mayor's office to support the mayor's push to increase awareness of and access to early childhood education and care through a proposed two-year $500,000 grant that will be managed by the Fund for Educational Excellence. So we've talked a little bit about, or a lot today, about why early learning matters, and I just want to continue to emphasize this very important point that lots of people have said today, which is that 90% of a child's critical brain development happens in the first 5 years. But what I also want to draw a really clear connection to is what that means after that. So 50% of kids, over 50% of kids who attend a high quality early child care experience perform satisfactorily on the kindergarten readiness assessments as compared to 17% of kids who do not have any prior care. What that also correlates to is that almost 5 times, the kids who are kindergarten ready are 5 times more likely to be reading on grade level at the end of 3rd grade. Kids who are reading on level at the end of 3rd grade are way more likely to graduate high school in 4 years. Kids who graduate high school in 4 years are more likely to be on a path, whether that's through career or college, to a future that earns livable wages and has a livable, sustaining wage to support a family going forward. Education is cumulative. These early years are foundational, and if we don't get that right, the likelihood of success for our kids down the way diminishes significantly. The second piece I want to talk about has also been mentioned here. It is absolutely an economic strategy. We know that when childcare is reliable, accessible, and affordable, families are able to stay in the workforce, and that has a tremendous benefit for families, and it has a tremendous benefit for our city. So as people have talked about, the state is expanding pre-K to all 4-year-olds and income-eligible 3-year-olds through the blueprint. And Baltimore's expansion and the blueprint requires that this happen through a mixed delivery pre-K system. And that is really, really important for many reasons. The first is that families of young children absolutely need and deserve options to find a setting that best meets the need of the family, whether that's geographic, whether that's the size, whether that's based on your religion or your primary language. Finding the right option for your family matters a lot. Secondly is a very practical and pragmatic reason, which is that our public schools simply don't have the facilities capacity to meet the demand that exists. So that when you have a mixed delivery model, you're able to maximize expansion by utilizing existing space outside of our public school systems. And the third reason, which I don't feel like I can hit hard enough, given some of the questions you all have raised in the conversations that we've had here, which is that childcare programs rely on the enrollment of 3- and 4-year-olds to be financially viable. That infants and toddlers generally are not profitable for a childcare center. And we talk a lot at the fund about the fact that this is actually a broken market for the reasons that you brought up. It is ungodly expensive for families and not a sustainable business for the people who operate these centers. And if you take our 3- and 4-year-olds out of these centers, the whole thing falls apart. Sorry. What we also know is that investing in our childcare system has a direct benefits for families. And at the fund, we have seen how investing in this is incredibly beneficial, and the return on investment is very, very clear. Over the last 2 fiscal years, there's been about $130,000 investment from the philanthropic community to provide technical assistance to childcare providers. What that has generated is 190 new free pre-K seats for families. It's $2.6 million in state funding that has come across 9 childcare providers in our city. And we know that by investing in the quality and capacity of our childcare providers, Baltimore City can not only catalyze and capitalize on state dollars, but we also strengthen the overall landscape of the entire prenatal to 5 continuum. Lastly, I want to talk about the mayor's investment and how these funds will drive impact. So again, this is a proposed investment. We are waiting for approval from the Board of Estimates, but we're excited to share a little bit with you about what our plan is. We are very excited about this $500,000 investment over the next 2 years, and it only sort of continues the mayor's investment, the continuation of nearly $1 million that was invested in childcare as part of shutdown relief programs. And ultimately, what we are working to do is to address some of the barriers that were identified in the ECAC's 2025 landscape analysis by strengthening the access, quality, and capacity of our providers. So there are 3 components to how these funds will be used. The first is really thinking about access. So we will be working to ensure that these grant funds support a citywide multilingual enrollment campaign focused on expanding access to existing pre-K seats. The second is that these funds will be used to improve childcare quality by providing technical assistance, which Tracy talked about the importance of, to providers to support them increasing their quality indicators, including Excel ratings, earning specific credentials, achieving accreditation, and working to provide professional development to better support students with disabilities. And finally, the grant funds will be used to make targeted direct investments to providers to increase their capacities, specifically enabling smaller centers and family care homes to open or expand their infant and toddler capacity. And this will have a very clear focus on very specific geographic areas of our city where we know those deserts that were referred to earlier, and can have the most impact. I also want to say that these funds will be distributed through an open and competitive process that will be managed by the Fund for Educational Excellence. So again, key takeaways for today. Well, we are focused very much on this pre-K expansion work. I want to be clear, it is just one piece of a larger system. We can't either or this problem. If we're not working on all of it, it is all going to fall apart and it will fail. There has to be a systemic prenatal to 5 approach. We talked about the reasons why the expansion to pre-K through a mixed delivery model specifically is so essential, why investments why the investment in the early childhood landscape has such a high return and is so important to our city and to our families, and ultimately looking at how we will invest the $500,000 that is being proposed by the mayor's office. Thank you for having me here today and for all of us, and appreciate this conversation very much.
No, thank you for the presentation. I am very glad that you mentioned early learning as being foundational, right? And that it's not just about the first 5 years, but after those 5 years, right? So kindergarten readiness, 3rd grade reading level. So again, that this is something that's cumulative, as we should say. So before we go to our city agencies, I know Councilmember Parker, did you? Just one city agency. Wait, do you have a question?
I do, but I wasn't trying to interrupt.
Oh, okay. So we'll go to city agencies. See, health department. And,
Good afternoon, Chair Bullock, Councilmember Council President Cohen, members of the committee, thank you so much for having us here today. Julia Roche, Legislative Affairs Director with the Baltimore City Health Department. And I'm accompanied by Rebecca Deneen, who is our Assistant Commissioner for Maternal and Child Health. As you all know, as a local health department, we're not a child care provider, and it's not something that is under our purview, but it is extremely important to our mission, in particular, the mission of our Bureau of Maternal and Child Health. And Rebecca is going to share more with you about that. Thank you.
So, hello, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today about our perspective on childcare, which, as Julia said, is one that echoes very much what other folks have said. The Baltimore City Health Department's Bureau of Maternal and Child Health leads the expansive citywide public health initiative that I think many of you are familiar with, called Be More for Healthy Babies. This initiative has helped the city achieve a 39% decline in infant mortality since 2009 and a 49% decline in the black-white gap in infant mortality and a 61% decline in teen birth. So on January 23rd, which was Maternal Health Awareness Day, Be More for Healthy Babies released our new refreshed strategy with the overarching goals of reducing infant and maternal mortality in Baltimore City by 10% by 2030. The Bureau leads Be More for Healthy Babies with key partners, the Family League of Baltimore and Healthcare Access Maryland. And our role is to organize and convene all maternal and child health services in the city, oversee the development and implementation of the citywide strategy, maintain the health data, coordinate system strengthening, and update policies while operating the following programs. We do care coordination of pregnant and postpartum people. We run the WIC program, which is Women, Infants, and Children's Nutritional Program, nurse home visiting and other home visiting for pregnant and postpartum families, perinatal and postpartum behavioral health support, the Baltimore Infants and Toddlers Program, family planning and reproductive health. We have a family planning reproductive health clinics at 1501 West Saratoga Street and 1200 East Fayette Street, the immunization program, and importantly, the fetal and infant mortality review, child fatality review, and maternal mortality review. And I'll talk a little bit more about why child mortality fatality review is important in a minute. So as Julia said, we're not a child care provider and don't have purview over child care providers, as that is outside of our scope as the local health department. However, quality, affordable child care is an important social determinant of health. And I'll also say that we have actually recently had to have staff leave because of the cost of child care was so expensive that they were better off staying at home. So we experienced this directly as managers. I keep going back the long way. One goes missing. The other way. There we go. This is just a slide about Be More for Healthy Babies, envisioning that Baltimore is a place where all babies are born healthy and grow up in supportive families and neighborhoods. Those would be neighborhoods that have accessible, high-quality childcare that's affordable. We work with 150 partners on all aspects of the prevention of maternal and infant mortality and the promotion of maternal and child health. And this slide gives a high-level overview of our approach. We've presented this on a few times, so I'll just give you a moment to read, or it can be available to you later to refresh your memories. Okay. The child fatality review. So as we all know, children are not supposed to die. The death of a Baltimore City child is a great loss to family, friends, and the entire community, and is a marker of health and safety of our children. From a public health perspective, the death of a child is a sentinel event, the worst possible unexpected outcome that should urge our city to action. Efforts to understand the factors that lead to a death help prevent poor birth outcomes, injury, disability, and death in our city is through the Child Fatality Review. It's an action-oriented, collaborative process that brings together key people and agencies to discuss the circumstances that led to the death and the community's response to that death. The goal of this is to conduct a comprehensive multidisciplinary review to better understand how and why children die and use the findings for actions that can prevent other deaths and improve the health and safety of our children. The Baltimore City Child Fatality Review is chaired by the Commissioner of Health and is staffed by my bureau, the Bureau of Maternal and Child Health. It's comprised of representatives of core agencies designated in state statute, including the Baltimore Department of Social Services, the Baltimore Police Department, the Baltimore State's Attorney's Office, Baltimore City Public Schools, the Behavioral Health System of Baltimore, as well as other local agencies. The Baltimore City Child Fatality Team meets monthly to review cases of unusual and unexpected death in children from birth to age 17 who are residents of Baltimore City. Deaths that are considered unusual and unexpected are those that result from unintentional injury, that would be motor accidents or fires, and intentional injury, gun violence, child abuse, and suicide, and those that are of undetermined nature. So I'm getting to why this is relevant to childcare. Be More for Healthy Babies is closely linked to the Baltimore City Child Fatality Review Team and serves as its community action arm. Our Be More for Healthy Babies core implementation teams reviews these child fatality recommendations and prioritizes issues and refers to agencies as appropriate and implements interventions to improve service systems and resources. We have identified through Child Fatality Review multiple deaths related to children being placed in the care of people who are not well equipped to care for them because their parents have no other options. In our child fatality meeting this past Monday, we had a case where a mother left her 3-year-old in the case of the mother's sister who had fentanyl stored in a shoebox in the home. While caring for the toddler, the aunt left the house to go to a local corner store, and because the drugs were not stored in a lockbox and out of reach, the toddler got into the fentanyl and died from an overdose. Unfortunately, this kind of tragedy is not isolated. Lack of affordable and accessible childcare has many negative consequences, but we see the worst of the consequences in our child fatality review. We've seen multiple cases where families appear to have such limited options for caregivers that in desperation, they put their children with inexperienced caregivers who do not have basic safety measures in place. Through our programs such as home visiting, we advise parents about the safety measures for selecting a child caregiver, as well as making referrals to Family Tree for parenting resources and all of these other incredibly important agencies that have spoken today. Additionally, we also published recommendations and are right now revising them after this meeting on Monday about how to safely choose a caregiver. However, we find that parents continue to have extremely limited options, especially in emergencies. This is an incredibly important issue, and we appreciate the hearing being called. We now turn it over to the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Services, who will discuss the Early Childhood Advisory Commission. Thank you.
As we're passing along the clicker, I will just say I'm thankful, even though it was a tragic situation, that you have highlighted the life and death nature, literally, of childcare and having quality childcare. So thank you for mentioning that. Dr. Brooks, please.
Good afternoon, Chair, Council President, and committee members. So as we've heard throughout this presentation, I'm just going to actually highlight some of the things that we've already heard. So led by MOCFS, or the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success, in 2021, Baltimore City Children's Cabinet Action Plan was developed through extensive community engagement, work groups, and collaboration from various city and state agencies, as well as community-based partners and academic institutions. The Cabinet Action Plan aimed to address systemic barriers in 7 identified priority areas for youth aged 0 to 24. One of those priorities was early childhood education, which MOCFS was made able to support numerous programs and initiatives. MOCFS supported the development of ECAC's website, the Baltimore City's Young Children Prenatal to 5 Experiences, which was a report by Johns Hopkins School of Education, and Early Childhood Workforce Study in Baltimore City by University of Virginia. Also under the Children's Cabinet, MOCFS has also supported the Family Tree's Baltimore City Child Care Resource Center's Early Childhood Educator Professional Development Pilot Program and 2 emotional wellness conferences, one which is in 2025, which I had the opportunity to attend and engage with some of the early childhood caregivers, as well as I look forward to the 2026. Also, as you've heard, As mentioned by our partners at the Fund of Educational Excellence, Mayor Scott has allocated $500,000 for the Baltimore City Early Childhood Quality Access and Enrollment Initiative. This award will be funded through 2026 and 2027 and will be managed by the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success in partnership with the fund. Not only will this initiative provide grant funding for local child care providers in the areas of quality improvement and capacity building, which you've heard, it will also support a rollout of a 2-year citywide pre-K enrollment and awareness campaign. This campaign is in line with the vision of the Mixed Delivery Work Group, again, which you have heard, which both myself and the director of Baltimore City Head Start, Shandon Barrows Campbell, are members of. We are excited to see how this campaign will increase parents and caregivers' awareness of the child care options and the great impact it will have on supporting the child care ecosystem in Baltimore City. The Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success is really excited to continue to partner with all of the panel members that you've heard, as well as to continue to support this great work, and we're so glad that we were able to speak today. Thank you.
No, thank you. Also appreciate the additional context in terms of the mayor's commitment to early child care, and then also some details about how this is going to be rolled out. Also, Vice Chair Parker, I appreciate your patience. So I'll go to you. I'll go to you first, and then if Council President has a question, I'll go to you next. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to all the presenters today. It's a gathering of really close partners and friends and colleagues and people and organizations who've been doing such good work for so long. And really grateful to have the opportunity under the leadership of the mayor and MOCFS and others, and the opportunities provided by the current legislation to really take these partnerships and this knowledge and put it into really concrete action. So grateful for all of that. I especially want to thank Family Tree has been a huge help specifically to our teachers and staff and the work that you all have done supporting their development and on the ground work directly with families, especially families with special needs and all the rest. It's been a huge benefit. So I want to show some love there. I know we're going to have another hearing in February, and so I'm just going to flag these for now, but they came up in the presentations and the data today, but I think they're better suited for the next conversation. So just in particular, looking at the Head Start numbers and how our Head Start providers track out against their Excels rating, I was surprised to see how many of our Head Start providers were to Excels level 1 and 2. A lot of the Head Starts that I work with directly in my district or that I've had folks connected with are operating at a really high level, many in level 5 and really excellent. So look forward to exploring that because that's such a critical thing, and we want to make sure that especially those federally funded programs are really leading the way on quality in the city. The second thing, I know we'll have a chance to speak about this with Baltimore City Schools, but ECAC I think brought up this disconnect currently in the data between our Excels ratings and kindergarten readiness assessments, and want to see what we can do. And I say this as a provider in particular. We would love to track and be able to report our data because then we can apply for more grants and talk about how great our kids are doing. I mean, all the rest, and also identify gaps where we haven't done a good job and rectify that. So I'm looking forward to continuing that conversation around how we can track our students better as they get into Baltimore City schools, not just KRAs, but deeper, and then be able to turn that back into implementations, provider or across the city in terms of what we're doing to support student success. So flag those for next time. A quick question for our friends from MSD. Remind us with Child Care Scholarship, from this, are there any limitations on eligibility based on the immigration status of parents? I thought there was, but just wanted to make sure we said that out loud.
So because it's federal child care development funds, it looks at the child's eligibility, and the child has to be a U.S. citizen.
Right, that's what it is. Not based on parents, but based on the citizenship of the child.
Yes.
Great, thank you for that. I think this is probably, I thought the report from ECAC is so comprehensive, so great, so much good information, but flipping through, I couldn't quite track it down. Was there statistics there about the current or the kind of historic changes in compensation for staff in early childhood education? I thought that data was there. I know I've seen it other places.
Specific to the actual landscape itself, I don't know that there is, and Yolanda can help me if I'm wrong, but we don't have that detailed information in this report, or either the first one.
Okay. I think I probably saw some, I mean, I know we're all in this work. I think I probably saw some stats maybe in an Able Foundation report, maybe 2 years old at this point, that looked at the state of childcare in Baltimore City. So anyway, just especially if we're talking about reimbursement rates, and as Roger pointed out, kind of the financial tentativeness of all of this entire system, and want to make sure that the people that are highly trained educational professionals that we have really high expectations of are also being compensated in a way that allows them to support themselves and their family. That data and kind of fresh data regularly is going to be really important for us to be able to make good decisions about the interventions on that front. So just naming that for us. The final questions I had were to Roger. With pre-K expansion, I think right now in Baltimore City for that 4-year-old pre-K expansion program, we're at 386, I think was the number of seats, or last year's number, maybe?
For 4-year-olds?
Well, I assumed it was 4-year-olds.
For 3-year-olds in Baltimore City. So 4-year-olds are actually well covered by Baltimore City Public Schools. I'm sorry, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but it's something like 3,500 students. 3-year-olds in Baltimore City Public Schools is much smaller than that. And it's partly why expanding to child care providers is so critically important.
Sorry, yes, I appreciate that. The question I was asking is, under the blueprint of funding and the pre-K expansion grant rollout, how many seats for 4-year-olds currently now exist in private providers?
For 4-year-olds with private providers? I have to get back to you on it. I don't know.
Sorry, I thought it was in front of us. I apologize.
No.
Because the question I think for me is with pre-K expansion in particular, we use the language expansion, but I've often seen in the private marketplace in that mixed delivery model that they're not new seats, but they're seats that are converting, which is an important thing. I mean, we're converting in terms of the standards for curriculum, for teacher training, for teacher compensation are much higher in those. So like those are good. But sometimes we use the word expansion and we think they're new seats versus seats that are converting from existing to kind of an upgraded seat. Do we have some sense of how many new seats so far have been created in the private marketplace in the city of Baltimore versus converted existing seats? Just so we talk about, I know we saw stats about decreasing capacity and want to make sure that, that's an important question, I think.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, but I can certainly get it for you.
Yeah, that is a great question, Sarah Nolan Morgan. So we'll work with you to look at that. We talk about publicly funded seats, and that really is the difference as you look at affordability for families, that those then become publicly funded. And I do have the average dollar amount. So a childcare scholarship for a preschool child in a center-based is $15,600 for pre-K. So that's actually more than we are funding our pre-K expansion programs right now that have to meet that quality standard. But for family childcare, so it's different for the family versus the center, it is $12,254.84. So a little bit less.
Very good. And the last question here, just on the 500K grant, and again, it gets to capacity. I know the third leg of that was capacity specifically for infant and toddler in this competitive program. Capacity can mean a few things. I mean, we talked about how expensive it is on an ongoing basis to provide the staffing necessary for an infant and toddler, where it's a 2-to-1 ratio, or then a 2-to-1 ratio. But I hear grants, and I think like an upfront thing, which doesn't address the long-term kind of subsidy needed for those centers to keep operating. So I'm curious, but then there's also obviously the startup cost of converting or physically constructing or purchasing new space that is appropriate for that use. So when we talk about capacity, what exactly are we aiming at?
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's a good one. I think because of the funding, the short-term nature of the funding, we are thinking about it more as the latter, right? So when you think about, if one of the barriers to opening infants and toddler seats is you need more cribs, right? This funding could be used to buy 10 cribs, right? Which could be used for a long period of time. We would not expect this to be used towards staffing or compensation or recurring expenses that are longer term, because we don't know that it's a sustainable source of funding. So we think about, what do providers need to get their accreditation or their licensure to serve infants and toddlers, and how can these grant dollars be used to help remove those barriers?
Inclusive of the renovation of spaces?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for those detailed questions and answers. Expect nothing less from a provider and a father. Mr. President, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and really thank you for conducting a really strong hearing as well. Appreciate just the level of interest on this topic among colleagues across the council. Also, thank you to all the providers and partners that are here. Really enjoyed going to the ECAC conference this year. Really enjoyed visiting the Child Care Center. The work that Maryland Family Network does is extraordinary. The map was awesome tool for us to be able to see each of our own individual districts. And of course, Roger, always for being responsible with the money and being a great partner to the city in that way. So just appreciate everybody here. I want to somewhat piggyback off of what Councilmember Parker was talking about in terms of the challenge of growing and developing the workforce in this space. And I'll just lift up something that I experienced with my family, which is before we got our kids into preschool, pre-K4 at Hampstead Hill, which has been wonderful. We were in a private pre-K, starting I think at age 2 for each of my kids. It was good. I'm grateful that they had that experience, that it existed. But one of the dynamics we saw was that my son would have a teacher, and then 8 weeks later, he'd have a new teacher. And then where did the first teacher go? Oh, they're a bartender now. Or, oh, they're at Celebree or over at Goddard or over at some other pre-K. And what became really clear to me watching this dynamic over and over and over again is that they're simply not being paid enough. Period. I'm curious, anyone can jump in, but fixing this gap, making this a sustainable career for folks, because again, you know, you guys said the stat 4 different times during the presentations, right? 90% of the brain growth first 5 years. So if that is true, and if we value our children and their long-term capacity to learn and to grow and to flourish, then one would think providing a decent salary for people to work in this field would be critically important. So just curious for any of the panelists to jump in, solving this issue of wages and making this a sustainable career.
I wanted to jump in and thank you for your question and again the opportunity to be able to present today. So it's a saying that parents can't afford to pay and teachers can't afford to stay. I think a lot of this is truly a career where it's hard work. Truly, you do this for the passion. When you often are competing with like Amazon, who's paying $19 an hour, and each child care program operates as a small business, it truly takes an investment in a small business where child care programs will truly be able to afford to increase the salary of their staff.
And I would just say, one of the things, and I know they have been done, and I'm a child care provider as well, and we have been surveyed and focus grouped quite a bit. But looking at the true cost of care to then determine what it takes to maintain what you're doing. We don't have that. We're just going by, I don't even know what we're going by, but we're going by not the true cost of care. If we know that, and then we know what it takes to give the high quality care that we are doing or trying to do, and what all those numbers look like, then we can begin to look at what a salary would be. Because it's not just salary, or if we are looking at salary, we must include benefits. Because when our teachers get education, they leave to go to a school system or somewhere else that gives them benefits as well. That's part of that salary piece, and we just can't do it. We can't meet it. I did want to say earlier, I don't know if this is part of what could answer your question, but I believe right now with the Blueprint funding, there's 9% of community-based pre-K classrooms. The other 94% is through Baltimore City Public School Systems. So hopefully that kind of helps you. And those that 9% aren't new people, they are centers who converted and were able to get the blueprint funding, so.
No, I just want to thank everybody who's here, because again, all the conversation we have leads us to some of the same places, right? So we think about the turnover, thinking about the true cost, how that relates to salaries, right? Longevity, all those things are working together. So again, just appreciate all of the back and forth. Council Vice President Middleton.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for, first of all, bringing this very important issue to light, and ditto to the president and all of my colleagues for, we all thank you for the hard work that you do. Every one of you plays a really important role in the welfare and safety of the future of our young people. And as a former educator that was one of my first careers, I really understand and appreciate all that you do. And so I have two questions listening to all of this, and since I'm in another phase in my life, as an older adult, not a grandparent yet, still working on my son, trying to find that special lady. But he's going to kill me for saying that. But, of course, no rush. Well, I serve on the Commission for Older Adults, and also all of the female members are ex officio members of the Women's Commission. And I also was thinking, representing Pimlico, I saw Pimlico as one of the, I guess, network groups. They had a grandparents program that was, oh my God. In fact, they were the first school to really start that. And I guess trying to figure out, or if you have those connections with our older adults, retirees, just a volunteer network, even if they get a little stipend for that volunteering. I know that Mary Pat Clark, God rest her soul, was very a strong supporter of that, was it Experience Corps? And, those were things that she kind of looked at for that organization to really help and partner with all of these things. So I guess, could anyone kind of answer, are you focused on that group of people helping with our young people and building that intergenerational help? Who'd like to answer that?
Well, I will say, at my center, I'm in Garrison, the Garrison area. My neighborhood, my center's been there for about 30 years, and in the neighborhood, they know us pretty well. So we know lots of older persons. Part of it is they look at the way, and they've seen it on TV or just in the community, some of the behaviors of the children. They're not so comfortable necessarily always coming in, even with our little ones, because we have a lot going on. When we're dealing with early learning, we have a lot of social emotional things going on, which is why we have that early mental health agency, because we see so much more of that, and especially after COVID. But people are just not as comfortable. But I have tried to rally and get some of the older persons to come in and volunteer and just help us out and be around. But it's just not so easy. And then just their ability to get to my center. Can they walk there? The area I'm in, there's a lot of prostitution. There's a lot of drug dealing. They're not going to necessarily just go back and forth on that. At the very corner of at the corner of the street where my center is, literally all day long, there's prostitution going on. And so they're not, they're not safe. Right. So I think they would be interested, and there are certain ones who could even manage through what we deal with the children. But it's, you got safety issues and all those things to look at as well.
I would love to jump in on this. Hi, I'm Laura Wheeldryer from Maryland Family Network. I think the issue you've raised is a great example of where the city could play a role in facilitating this, because there are states and municipalities that have put a big influence on this intergenerational connection, and they've done things like connected developers who are building senior housing with childcare providers who you've already heard never have enough space at a low enough cost. So things like braided tax credits, incentives to developers to include space for Head Start or early Head Start or childcare. These would be amazing things for the city to play a role in brokering and connecting. I'm pretty sure it's the state of Kansas, but I can get back to you on this, has done this, and there's a little documentary about it. The outcomes are amazing, not just for the kids, but for the mental health of the seniors who live in these places and get a whole new way of interacting and connecting and purpose in their lives. Like, the mental health incomes are pretty striking. So I think it would be a great area of exploration for the city and hit a lot of marks on things that you care about.
So this is, I just wanted to also say that the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success and the Mayor's Office of Older Adults and Affairs is working very closely. Ms. Ondoria and I work very closely on initiatives like this, and this is one initiative that we are working on to see how some of our older adults are able to even connect with our Head Start centers first, because there are opportunities for our older adults to come in and support at our Head Starts. Going through the volunteer program first to make sure that they've had the training to be able to understand and work with our young people, but we are working closely together. So I wanted to share that.
And I'll just follow up with one of the state's early Head Start providers just got a new early Head Start grant. And as part of that, they are building a new center and co-locating with a senior. So going back to what Laura said, we want to see more of those as well. We have lifted that up. So not in our advocacy, but our education and how successful it can be when you do that. And then I want to just, as we look at rates and wages, there's an unfortunate disconnect between the rates the state provides as a reimbursement rate and the actual wages and compensation that the staff in those programs get. They aren't tied together. So we can increase rates, and we hope that the program providers then increase wages, but that isn't inherently or necessarily there. Our pre-K, publicly funded pre-K, does have a requirement around the educators' wages. And that part we actually, I will unfortunately say, we get some pushback on as people look at it, and it is something that we hold very firm to. If we are putting public dollars into pre-K, we expect the teachers to be compensated.
Thank you for that. Just one little second piece to that. Are there any teen parenting connections? Because we still have a very big problem with teen parents, and I know that Park Heights Renaissance has a hippie program that is very successful. I don't know if there's any other programs around the city that could be in this network or connect.
The Patty Centers that Mike spoke about were actually started in the late 80s, early 90s, specifically as an outreach mechanism for pregnant and parenting students. Who they serve now around the state has changed a lot. In fact, we serve a lot of immigrant families now, depending on which county we're talking about. But that is, most of the centers do provide, for example, a way to finish your high school diploma or get a GED because of that emphasis, and a lot of support on parenting, attachment-based parenting, mental health and reproductive health supports. So that is a big focus of those centers. And there's certainly some of them who serve almost exclusively a teen population.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Thank you so much for that question, the two-pronged question. One, in terms of older adults, and then also thinking about younger people. So remember, this committee is education, youth, and older adults. So it's always good to have that reminder. But as you mentioned, those Patty Centers, again, I've got a chance to visit over Excel Academy, and those young people were able to finish their high school diplomas. I mean, it is very key. And those kids are being taken care of in a very loving and cared environment. So I do absolutely appreciate that. So again, thank you for that question. Councilmember Blanchard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll note the parents can't afford to pay, teachers can't afford to stay, and early childhood educators are the workforce behind the workforce. If you have any other good aphorisms, please send them my way, because those were, I wrote both of those down. Just a comment, and it's certainly more on the politics side, but just a thought is, I think one real challenge with this is it's like retired people, older adults have ARP and similar ways of, organizing and things like that. And they're just politically, it's parents of young kids are it's hard to organize, and B, you're gonna be done with it at some point. So it's just making those connections to other young, parents of young kids and all these types of things are really challenging. And I think just looking at the politics of why things don't get funded, it's not because anyone doesn't think that it's a really important thing or a great thing to fund. I think a lot of it's just because it's really hard if you have little ones to get a bunch of people with little ones down to Annapolis, right? And all those types of challenges. So just a consideration of, I think that's part of why we're in this predicament is it's hard for the parents in this group to advocate and organize in the same way that other groups like older adults are better positioned to do so. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Really, really good points. Let's see, Councilmember Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just bear with me while I go through this process. So what I've been hearing today is just the challenges that exist. First, my first question, has there been consideration regarding changing the model, right, of how we do childcare? Because what I'm hearing is parents can't afford it, and also the people who are giving the child care can't afford to stay. They aren't making enough money, and it's just the system kind of isn't working. Just because that's one of the few people, only councilperson here without a child. Really having a child nowadays is looked at as a luxury almost, because people literally can't afford it. And it shouldn't have to be looked at that way, right? I think when you live in the wealthiest country in the entire world, having a child should not be looked at or starting a family shouldn't be looked at as a luxury. So when I say because families can't afford it. So when I talk about changing the model, I said it to say about how we looked at healthcare, right? At one point, the open market, the getting health insurance just didn't work, and then we attached it to the employer, right? And realized if we do it in larger groups, and if you get health insurance through your employer through larger groups, then the rates worked. It worked out better if everyone, rather than everyone get on their own. Has there been thought around providing childcare and attaching it to the employer as well, and whether or not that there's ever been synergy there or a model that actually worked there where if you do it on a larger scale, then you can it could become more affordable, and then the jobs can be better and it can become careers. And because the biggest thing I hear about as I put my Chair of Labor Workforce Committee hat on, one of the biggest challenges employers see is just the childcare part, making sure their employees can go to work so they have a vested amount of interest in it as well. Because, in order to, have a family, you have to pay for childcare. In order to go to work, you have to pay for that childcare. So it seems like a model that may work hand in hand rather than, these private, small businesses here and there. While, I think it's necessary room for them, it's a part of the model. But has there been conversations around changing that model around or reaching out to larger employers?
Yes. I'll try to restrict my answers. I think there's a couple of different examples worth looking at, and you're correct. Childcare is a broken business model, and tinkering around the edges is never going to get the kind of changes you have identified are so needed. So I think there are a few states really leading on this right now: New Mexico, Vermont, Massachusetts. What it requires, I mean, not to oversimplify it, of course, it requires political will and lots of smarts and data and great decision making. It requires a source of revenue. It's very, very expensive. Think about restarting the public school system from scratch, right? So there's that. There are about 10 states that are participating in something called TriShare, where they are trying a new model for childcare, which is that 1/3 of the cost is subsidized by the government through something like childcare scholarship, 1/3 is paid by parents, and 1/3 is paid by employers. It's a pretty new effort, so I don't think I can stand here with confidence and tell you about the outcomes, but there are nonprofits basically trying to get big employers to sign on to provide subsidies for childcare as part of their employee benefits package. And the last thing I will say is, one of the few pieces of actual legislation to come out of Congress in the last year was a big package of tax credits for employers that want to subsidize childcare. So again, this might be something to look at, and whether you want to promote it to the city's biggest employers and try to get a few of them to step on board. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, and this is my last comment, and we could take it offline, is that MFN has been supporting the Baltimore Police Department in a small pilot project. As you know, that they've been under a consent decree that included recruiting more women to the police force. And I'm glad you're all sitting down, but as soon as they started recruiting women, you know what came up? The lack of childcare. And it's not just the regular lack of childcare, it's the lack of childcare for overnights, for holidays, for weekends, for emergencies. So BPD has been providing a small subsidy to a group of employees, and we help them design the pilot and are tracking the outcomes in terms of staff retention and staff satisfaction. And maybe at another date, we could come back and talk to you more about that, because as I understand it from colleagues around the state, the recruitment and retention of first responders is a huge issue.
Thank you for that answer. I definitely would entertain that conversation offline, because I feel like it's important, because we're looking at choosing between how do we kind of hold together a broken system and kind of tie it together for as long as we can, or do we really shift and pivot and figure out how do we really provide people with the quality care that they need when it comes to childcare? Thank you for that.
No, I would say great question. It's fantastic to have the labor chair on this committee, because again, we spent so much time today talking about workforce issues, but then also hearing how that affects retention and recruitment. So again, thank you for giving some additional context to that. Do want to provide some time for public testimony. I know some folks are here to testify. So again, I will call your name, and if I don't call your name and you want to testify as well, please let us know. I do see Alexandra Tyson.
Good afternoon. Just want to pull up. So I'm Alexandra Tyson. I am one half of Sayana Partners, which is a consulting firm that supports childcare centers and providers throughout Baltimore City. I'm also the co-director of E3B, which is Equity in Early Education for Baltimore City's childcare providers. And one of our participants is here, and I can't wait to hear what she has to say. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Childcare is an essential infrastructure for Baltimore's economy, but the workforce that makes it possible is underpaid, undersupported, and stretched thin. If we want families to work and businesses to grow, we must invest in the people who care for our youngest residents. First, we need to raise wages for childcare workers so they can earn a living wage without leaving the field they love. Second, Baltimore City should expand access to publicly funded certification and credentialing programs, covering tuition, fees, and paid time to train, so providers can advance professionally without taking on debt or sacrificing income. And third, we must provide capital and technical resources to help providers expand and stabilize their businesses, whether that means facility upgrades, new classrooms, new curriculum, or hiring additional staff. These pre-existing funds already exist, as we know, so let's put them to work. When we invest in childcare providers, we invest in children, families, and the long-term strength of our city. Thank you.
No, thank you for that valuable perspective that you have given the work you do. Come forward. Yes.
Good afternoon, City Council President, members of the City Council, and partners committed to Baltimore's children. I just want to first thank you all for how you kept reiterating brain development, birth to 90% of the brain development in early education. My name is Nkenji Yassine, though many know me as Miss Penny, and I am the founder of Learning How Child Development Center here in Baltimore City. I've been in this work for over 20 years, first operating childcare out of my home, and today leading licensed centers serving families across multiple neighborhoods. I wanted to start by saying it plainly. Childcare is not babysitting, it is infrastructure. It is workforce development, it is public safety, it is economic mobility, and it is one of the earliest places where equity can either take root or be denied. Families in Baltimore don't struggle because they don't value early learning. They struggle because high-quality options are unevenly distributed, and transportation, hours of operation, and enrollment barriers make access fragile. Families working non-traditional hours, healthcare workers, hospitality staff, city employees, are often left out of the systems that assume 9-to-5 life. Childcare costs more than rent, as you all already said, for many families. Yet providers are asked to operate with razor-thin margins. Subsidies help families, but they do not truly cover the cost of quality, forcing providers to choose between sustainability and excellence. No one should have to decide whether to pay staff fairly or replace classroom materials. Quality is not accidental, it's intentional, trained, and resourced. I am proud that Learning How, with the support of E3B, has moved from a level 1 to a level 3 in Maryland Excels, with level 4 happening next week.
All right.
But the climb requires time, coaching, mental health support for staff, and capital investment that many providers simply cannot access alone. Providers are burning out. We are losing talented educators to industries, not because of the lack of passion, but because passion does not pay rent. If Baltimore wants stable childcare, we must stabilize the people who provide it through wages, benefits, substitutes, and business supports that recognize childcare as both care and enterprise. What families experience is not one system. It is many disconnected ones. Childcare, health, housing, workforce, and education must speak to each other. Programs like HIPPY, that we are a recipient of through the Family League of Maryland, E3B, community hubs, and place-based models work because they meet families where they are without judgment and teach skills that last beyond the classroom. I grew up in Baltimore. I am raising children here in Baltimore. One of my children just became a Baltimore City police officer. I am investing here and believe deeply that when we strengthen early learning, we strengthen the entire city. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you. We're all like want to give applause because there's so much here. One, just familiar with your work, but also the growth, right? And we talk about these professionals who may grow from a home-based center to one that is now a fully licensed center, but then also the growth as it relates to the quality of childcare, right? So congratulations on that. We love to see that progression and that growth and folks taking advantage of the resources that are available within the network. Very much appreciated. Is there anyone else here who wanted to testify who has not gotten a chance to? Are there any additional, I'm sorry? Oh, please, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I did not get the opportunity to sign up. My name is Yolanda Jenkins. I am the council coordinator for Baltimore City's Early Childhood Advisory Council. I am the only staffed position for the coalition. Everyone else that comes into the space is volunteering in their capacity and their love for this work. The ECAC, as Amani shared earlier, has been working in this capacity since 2019. We have sustained a membership of 34 to 42 individuals and organizations consistently since that time. The coalition has been doing the work to bring together folks to improve early care and education and make sure that our children enter school ready to learn. One of the things that I wanted to share was specifically around mixed delivery. The ECAC has been convening a group of providers, consultants, businesses, nonprofits since April 2023. And we have been meeting monthly since that time, specifically around mixed delivery pre-K in Baltimore City. That work we've had a lot of challenging conversations on how to implement mixed delivery in Baltimore City and how to do so in a way that is intentional and does not disenfranchise our childcare providers and unintentionally lose slots for our infants and toddlers. And I want to say that because of that work that we have been doing together, we have built trusting relationships. Partners such as the Fund for Educational Excellence, Maryland State Child Care Association, Baltimore City Child Care Resource Center, and Sienna Partners have gone off to do projects and programs that support child care providers, providing the funding and the infrastructure that they need to be able to apply to and be a part of this system. And I think that is a lot of the reason that Baltimore City has seen the success that it has seen in mixed delivery specifically. Greater success than a lot of other jurisdictions because folks have been intentional about coming together and having conversations and doing the work, not just talking about the work, but doing the work. And so what I want to encourage City Council to do is it's wonderful to have the hearings and to hear from folks, but now we got to do the work. There are some recommendations in the landscape analysis that I think are worth taking a look at. There are some wonderful examples regionally and across the United States of how local jurisdictions can support childcare and early learning, such as DC's childcare wage supplements and Montgomery County's local childcare scholarship program. Baltimore City is not without its resources. Baltimore City is not without examples. And I just want to encourage us all to move from talking to action.
Thank you. We can agree with a lot of what you said. I do want to also double down on what you mentioned a couple times around being intentionality, right? And then moving forward in terms of the work. It's one of the reasons why this is the first of a number of hearings that we're going to have because this is an issue that is very critical, not only now, but for our city's future. So again, we appreciate that. Is there anyone else here who wanted to testify who has not gotten an opportunity? Are there any additional questions or comments from members of the committee? I don't see anybody online who's here to testify. Nope. All right. So with that, I'm just going to thank everybody for being here. And what's demonstrated, and it was repeated earlier, is the level of interest among members of this committee who all showed up, and also the people who came here, the providers and the networks who showed up in the midst of the cold and the snow on the ground and the difficulty, because we know we're committed to this work, but this work is so important for the vast majority of us being parents and maybe soon to be parents, we never know. But all of that is really the backbone of our city. So again, we thank you for the ongoing work that you do. At this point, we're going to stand adjourned. But again, know that this is not a period, it's a comma, because there's still more work to be done. So again, thank you all. Please be safe, stay warm, and take care.